Ron, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay. Good evening. It is 6:00 p.m. This is the regular business meeting of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Members present include myself, Chairman Jacob Pride, Vice Chair Robert Levenheim, Township Manager Julia Heilica, and our solicitor Ron Karasak is on via Zoom. 2 announcements. We're seeking letters of interest for 2 planning commission seats with the deadline being December 28th, 2023. So send us that if you're interested. Also, we had an executive session held prior to, not this meeting, but the previous meeting regarding the SPS and PRD litigation. First order of business will be the tabling of the minutes of December 13th, as we don't yet have them. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to table.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, second by myself.
I'll second it. Jacob?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Public hearings, we'll get to that later on. We do have 1 and plans to act on the same thing. So Ron, I will ask if you have a report that you want to make while you're on Zoom with us.
The only report that I want to make, which follows last week's meeting, was that I had prepared and filed a record the motion for judgment on the pleadings in the Shawnee Preservation lawsuit, which supplements the motion for judgment on the pleadings that was filed by Shawnee Valley defendants and Mr. Hunter. And that's the only thing that's occurred since then. I've also done some additional paperwork with respect to the Shawnee Valley Owners Association, but that's not yet complete. So I'm not going to report on that any more than that.
Perfect. Thank you, Ron. John, we just got to engineer's
I got
report.
here just in time for the engineer's report. Well, I don't have a whole lot to report other than what is already on the agenda. We moved forward with the Wawa plan. We're continuing to work on the bike park for the NPDS permit, and we are in the process of securing proposals for infiltration testing for Lomas Park so that we can move forward with that. So that's what's transpired since the last meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Okay, next is the consent agenda, which includes 1 item, which is just the ratification of the advertisement for the supervisors and auditors reorganization meetings. Do I hear a motion?
Move to.
A motion.
Motion by Mr. Garrett. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Levenheim. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, next is a discussion on the nuisance and noise ordinance. There were a couple of updates and some notes because between the last time we discussed this item and now, the planning commission had a chance to make some notes on that. Julia highlighted those, and this is still the November 1st draft ordinance. What's this stuff?
I've got a lot of notes, but why don't I go through my notes and any of you just chime in when you want to, because the whole idea here is to let's go through this and figure out exactly what we do want. First is on page 1. We said was the definition of DBC. I just don't know if we need it. It seems like DBA, which is pretty much what we call the decibel level, is enough. And my feeling through this whole thing is just to make it as simple as possible so that anybody reading the ordinance can understand it and know what they have to do. So that was the first note I have. The second is on the third page. We talk about a noise control officer and then a noise control officer having noise enforcement training. I think that's a good idea. And I think it should be everyone who works in some capacity in the township should be trained in that. So there's always one of us available. Then like going to page 5, Julie made the note of what applicability. We have industrial facilities, commercial facilities, community service facilities. It'd probably be much easier if we just did it by zones. You know, the residential zone, the commercial zone, you know, so forth. So people can understand, well, this, if I just look up the zones, I'll know where I am as far as which one I'm in here. On page 6, we've got, again, enforcement officers, which we said would be people in the township, and then we've got noise control investigators. I'm not sure what that is, Julia. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, the concept originally from the original draft that we took was that the NCO would be the person who had had the training, and an NCI could be someone that discussed whether or not something is plainly audible. After the planning commission discussion, they came to the conclusion that having those two different positions was a little much, and they wanted to eliminate the NCI position entirely and only have NCOs.
So NCOs isn't that what we're talking about having and not NCIs?
Correct.
Okay, all right, so we just eliminate that. It just doesn't seem necessary. Now I'm on page 8, is table 3, maximum permissible octave band sound pressure levels and decibels. I don't know why we need this at all. As long as we've got decibel levels up here. And if you look, the decibel levels from during the day is 65, at night it's 50, right? 65 during 24 hours. I mean, it seems like that's pretty clear. And then the table bound down below, I don't even know what it is. I mean, what is this for?
So
Table 3.
regarding table 3, at least, I've got a comment in there. If anyone is following along on the red line version, it's page 8 for me. But we don't have a way to measure octave band sound. So that was a guidance is needed whether or not we should remove this.
But do we have to
entire
measure it?
table.
It seems like if we've got a decibel level, there's a noise and it's over 65 decibels, fine, it's a violation.
The reason octave band is included in here, and John, if you can have any comments on this sound, please feel free to jump in. Different frequencies of sound, depending on what they are, can be more annoying and pervasive the higher they go. So like a lower frequency sound, it's very quiet in general. So you can have louder instances of it without it being annoying. I don't know if anybody in the audience has heard those high-pitched like chirping frequencies for the cell phones and stuff. Those things are higher frequencies, but because they are such a higher frequency, they're much more annoying at much more lower levels than the lower octave band items. So that's the concept of this, that, you know, if you've got somebody who's emitting a high-pitched keening noise on their property, it might be very annoying if it's only at 55 decibels, but because of the frequency of the octave band, it's more painful faster.
Well, that's a good explanation. I still feel, from my point of view, if I was reading this in our code, I wouldn't know what I was reading or what it referred to. And then sound production devices, a meter that is set for waiting and respond. It's just too complicated. I think, you know, we may miss a few things, but if you just say decibels and someone says, okay, here's a meter and it's more than 65 decibels, we'll cite you. Seems like it's enough to be able to do that. Because I don't think anybody's gonna understand this. And the other thing I feel is we've in here referred to, hours of not operation. In other words, you can't do it between 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. Why not do it the other way, saying you can only do it between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. period? It just seems like it's the reverse of what most people would think of as the logic of, okay, yeah, I'll look at this. I can run my machine from 9 a.m. to 5, that's it. And I can't do it on Sundays, which is another thing we haven't included in here. Is Rob Tortorello in here?
Right here, sir.
Ah, here he is. I finally get to meet you. Well, we've talked about his problem, which is his neighbor has been running machinery very loudly every day
For 6
into the
years.
night. And I'm looking at on page 9, restricted uses and activities, power tools, home maintenance tools, landscape and so forth and so on. It just doesn't seem to have enough to satisfy what you need, is somebody to come and say, you can't run this and it's too loud and you can't do it more than, 8 to 6 during the week, and you can't do it more than 10 to 6 on Saturdays, and you can't do it on Sundays, right? Something like that.
If I may, is it okay to speak openly now? Kermit, my neighbor, who shares this dilemma with me and my wife. I have one question about what was said earlier about decibels, because what we're speaking about is a commercial entity operating in an R1 zone, and they have all kinds of equipment there. And it runs from 8 o'clock in the morning till long past sundown. It used to run on Sundays, and thanks to the board, it doesn't run on Sundays, but on Saturday at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's always every weekend. But I did want to question the frequency issue, because a bulldozer is a low frequency rumble, but it makes the whole house vibrate because it's so close to the walls of my home. And it's been going on for 6 years, so I don't know what you can write in an ordinance that would preclude somebody. I love DIY, applications of, renovation, but a 6-year project that is just.
Well, I don't even know with a bulldozer, even if it's a low rumble, it's pretty loud.
Oh, it's quite loud.
And this $65 decibels that we're calling the limit is about what you hear from a
Well,
washing
A
machine.
dishwasher is like
Yeah.
50 decibels.
So it seems like it would make enough noise
Yes.
for that.
You're right. No, the decibel level I didn't measure it, but it's enough to
I
make
think
the
it
windows in the house vibrate.
So I think we could take care of that, but what I'm disturbed about here is that we're not saying anything about, okay, one neighbor is doing all this, not a commercial operator, it's somebody next door, and this is a noise that goes on continually. It's not a power tool, it's not home maintenance, it's not landscaping, it's,
It's a
what do
construction.
you call it, a major remodel project of in a residential zone. I just think we have to be able to define that so that that can't go on.
I appreciate your efforts.
Okay, so anyway, I'm trying to think if I got anything else there. Oh, as I said, I'd rather have it, and this is on page 10 at the top on C, defining the hours you can do something, not the hours you can't do something. I just think it's easier for people to understand. I've got on page 12, no motorcycle shall be operated stationary in motion unless it has a muffler and complies with and is labeled in accordance with the federal noise regulation under 40 CFR Part 205. Well, I'm not sure this includes what part of the problem is the reason we're here, which is this BMX track where they're running these motorcycles all the time. You could say they probably have mufflers on them, but it doesn't do any good. Doesn't make any difference.
Well, they're 2-cycle engines, so they're never gonna be quiet unless they go electric.
So,
That's not gonna go electric.
I think we're not gonna fix that, right?
That would be the answer, go electric.
Ma'am, could I have your name, please?
It's Kathy Schoen here.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add, I appreciate Julia's explanation about frequency. And why wouldn't you keep that in there to have more ammunition when you have to approach someone if they are out of compliance? You know what I mean?
Well,
You're asking your member.
She's asking, her thought is leave the octave band table in there. So we have more tools in the toolbox to pursue someone if there's an issue.
well, I'm not here to say yes or no. I'm just saying I get confused by it. I get to that part of it and it's like, what? What do I do here?
Well, wouldn't
Yeah, I
the same device
understand that.
measure it?
But don't forget your training,
know.
we're all gonna be trained, so look at that. I'm not trying to be funny, I'm just being a background.
Um,
Good, golden.
We have two choices. We can either leave it in
Mhm.
or we can take it out and say, if there's a problem, we'll amend this and put it back or put it in some other form.
I'd rather see how it would be applicable, you know, on the device. Is it measured on the same device as decibel reading?
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I think that the regular decibel reader is for high frequency. And what they're talking about, and I hear that also sometimes, is the low frequency, which is the bass. And I think that I've been researching it, but I'm not really exactly certain how that's measured, but I think it is a different device. But I think that is part of the whole noise problem too, is with the low frequency. So I'm more in favor of keeping it in, and it does go by the frequency and the hertz. I was looking at that.
Right,
Because the lower the hertz, it's less, it's more tolerable. And the higher the hertz, which is, you know, like it's just pinging and pinging and pinging, then it's almost unbearable. So, I mean, you get into that too, and this man talking about the construction, you know, I can definitely relate to that, because you can hear that rumbling. And I don't think a regular decibel reader is going to pick that up.
sure.
How are you gonna address generators? My generator was going the other day, I didn't have electric, and my neighbor called and asked me to turn it off.
Well, you know, certainly we're not intending to limit people's use of a generator. I mean, likely in a scenario like that, most people are gonna be using a generator that have one.
We're saying here, this is,
Without
doesn't
her
include
closet.
emergency uses.
Right, well, no, but it exempts that type of thing.
The emergency uses are exempt.
Yeah, exactly.
It was anyway, so.
Yeah.
I think it says in there, emergency use under this.
Yes,
It's exempt.
yes.
Emergency home repairs, including that, so that would, it's number exemption B.
Yeah, we can always make it clearer in that anyway, but yeah.
The last note I have is the frustration note, which is, notice is required, so either it has to be written notice or it has to be delivered by hand. One of the problems we go through continually, and this is something that relates to Airbnbs, is finding the people who actually are responsible. Which sometimes is hard, and I think maybe we should broaden that to say, okay, let's say a bar is, in violation. We shouldn't have to find the owner, we can find anybody there, and as a representative, as an employer as an employee who's representing the employer, say, okay, we're finding you. I think it's a little too formal in saying you have to find the absolute owner to do this, so something we can talk about. It's a legal question, but, I just find it very frustrating when we can't find the, you know, who is really responsible? And do they live in Florida or do they live in here? We don't know.
I agree on that part, because some of the property owners are on their LLC, so you'll never find out who the real owner is.
Right,
That's why I think, Ron, don't some municipalities perform service by advertisement in a publication, like once or twice on some of these types of issues?
At times that is done, but usually by court approval or court order of some type. I mean, as a general rule, the constitutional rule of due process is you have to have notice and you have to have an opportunity to be heard. So if you are going to cite someone but not give that person notice, that's gonna be a tough call to win in court, I think.
Right, well, I don't mean as the only method, I just mean at a certain point, you know, it becomes clear you're not going to be able to get an individual for, you know, either like what Vicky said, or perhaps some other circumstances that we've had with, like Scott Amori's neighbor. That guy is hard to find. We've even tried to mail him stuff in Florida where he is supposed.
Well, I think that under those circumstances, you could probably file a petition with the county court and explain what you've done to try to find this person, go through your due diligence, if you will, and then a judge would probably give you some type of alternate form of service, whether by publication or posting of the premises or something like that.
Okay, so that's not something that we really need to include here under the notice section, then that would be just an extraneous, hopefully limited circumstance.
Those are the end of my notes, and I hope there are different suggestions and notes out here. And I just want to comment that this is the best of what we can do, what we're doing here tonight, which is taking an issue which everybody has had problems with, or everybody here, and saying, our job is to make some rules that we can follow. And that everybody who is affected should be able to participate. And too much of what we do as supervisors is zoning problems or permissions for, you know, building some. This is what we really should be doing, which is about how people live and how we can serve you the best. So.
I have one question. When you came up with the 65 decibel? That's nice.
You have to have 65 decibels.
Where do you come up with that? Because even talking with you right now, listening on your pitch of voice, it could be 65. Even talking in my own house, it would be 65. And when you look at the other decibel areas, the noises like in the city, it's over 100 something. Even like the church bell is 65. Depending where the distance is, I am standing at.
Oh, well, that's really the
So,
key
and
there.
then like another example, the hours that you have. People come home late from work, 5, 6 PM, and we have a snowstorm. And normally people turn their snow throwers on at 7 PM to clean their snow, and that's a 2-stage. That will make a 65 decibel
That's
too.
exempt as well.
Well, you gotta clarify that more, that
It's in here.
No.
it can't be on under home improvements.
No, it's not.
So emergency, yeah.
10, section 309, item J, operation of snow removal equipment is specifically exempt.
Okay, so like, if I have a snow plower guy come at 3 AM to clean my driveway, that's
It's
fine.
permitted, yes.
Yeah.
And where we got to 65 was somewhere between, let's say, 55 and 75 is what's usually acceptable. And there are tables that say, okay, 65 is what you'd hear your washer dryer was on in the next room. So it gives a sense of what a loud noise is versus what a soft noise is or a too loud noise. So, and as Michael back here, our supervisor-elect knows, the state alcoholic beverages enforcement says it has to be less than 75, I think, from, let's say, a bar measured at the property line of the bar. We said, okay, maybe that's a little high for most residents, and I think people agreed that 65, you know, other people that are here that have been here before said 65 is about right. So that's how we got to 65.
Well, I really think you really need to look at that decibel level more intense, because 65 is pretty too low.
Well, I disagree with that. I think 65 is mostly right on target, because it depends on, you add the base, which is the low frequency, and that just ups it. And 75 was not from the Liquor Control Board. That was from Act 67, which was lobbied by the Pennsylvania Licensed Beverage and Tavern Association. They were the ones that wanted to go up to 75. The Liquor Control Board never had any decibel reading. They just said if any entity, well, this is concerning entertainment venues that hold liquor licenses. If you can hear their sound off their property, then you can be cited. So that 75 was never from the Liquor Control Board. This was from a lobbying situation.
I think the other thing to think about is, this is all based on complaints. If nobody complains, there's no problem. If somebody complains, then we'll come out with a meter and we'll, go through the drill. But there are a lot of things we all do that are louder. And, nobody, our neighbors are tolerant of it and adjusting to it. I think what we're really talking about here is things that become irritants.
Well, or abusive, like they're abusing the situation.
Right.
Because most people are fair-minded and they're not going to complain if their neighbor's gonna have a party or, snow throwing or snow blowing or whatever. They understand that, but this is
No,
really for
I
people
get
who are
that part,
abusing it.
but there's some people that will abuse this ordinance. And I know some of them that will abuse it,
Mhm.
and I feel sorry for them for taking all that call.
Well, I mean, this is what we have to do.
I think you need to change the number, that's my opinion, Robert and Jacob.
Well,
Do you have
Need
a
to do
specific
more
number?
research on the numbers.
I mean, I think we've done a fair amount. That's not to say this is final, but do you have an alternative? Higher number or?
Another thing, if they don't know who owns things, but you know, like East Stroudsburg has to register all people that rent from them once a year.
Right.
And it works very well in East Stroudsburg. Maybe we need to do something like that.
Yeah, there's a thought. There's another hand back, Mr. Norris.
Yes, I live up on Ocean Knob, and I can hear the beepers from the quarry. I can hear the tracks on the bulldozer. I can hear the tailgate slamming, the stone crushers running. That noise goes right up the mountain on the other side. And you get used to it after a while, but it's pretty loud. It's, when you live back in the woods where I do, you don't expect to hear that kind of stuff every day. And when they built the development on the backside of the lakes, I listened to them banging rocks every day on the jackhammers, on the excavators, and all the construction noise. And now they want to do the camp, I'm gonna have all of it again. And if anybody took notice the other day of all the water that came down over the mountain, ran right across the road into the camp, right where they want to put their road. Somebody better look at the water problem before they say that. And they're saying, well, if we don't approve this, they'll bring equipment in. How are they gonna bring equipment in there and do anything when they don't even have a road? They can't just drive across the creek and drive through the wetlands. They have to get a road straightened out first. That's not gonna be flooded. And the firehouse got flooded.
I can hear Route 80 from my house, and I can hear the truck.
It's all common sense. You're gonna have that.
If I may, I'd like to echo what this gentleman was just saying about it's all relative audio. If you're in the quiet of the woods, the pin drop sounds loud.
Yes, you hear
If
it
you
all.
live off town or off 209 or off 80 and there's ambient, there's probably 75 dBs of just normal ambient sound. So that noise gets lost in that white noise or pink noise. But when you're in the quiet of the woods, you've got jackhammers and bulldozers and arc welders and all the things of industry going on. That just becomes a little more onerous.
I think that's why there's a thought about changing from just the straight decibel levels to decibel levels by zone. There's going to be a difference in the noise that you're gonna hear in a residential zone that's gonna be reasonably acceptable there versus, in a commercial zone or, the manufacturing zone.
And that's demonstrated in tables 1 and 2. If you're in a residential area, they're one thing, if you're in something else.
I don't have the document you have. I appreciate it.
Well, if you want, it's all online. I believe I have your email, Rob, so I will send
Thank
you
you
that
so
link.
very much. Thank you.
Just curious, have you guys looked at any like Stroud Nuts or anything else? Do they have anything like this? They don't guide us?
A bunch, in the region, not everyone has one. It's typically the more dense municipalities. Borough has some of these.
I know Strat Township has an hours of like
Right,
operation,
most have
so to
that.
speak.
Right, and that's where we got most of the information for the hours of operation. Most seem to have that, but not necessarily decibel level. Comment?
Yeah, I have a question. I live off of Airport Road, right next to the airstrip, where they are building a new industrial park. I am a homeowner, so, but I'm zoned light industrial. So if you're going to make your choices off of zoning, how would that affect me?
Really quick, are you Tiffany?
I am.
It's wonderful to put a face to the name. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a totally fair question, and I think that's something that we probably need to look at a little bit further.
Well, so
Before the
I
next time.
I've got kind of a explanation for that. Under section 10302 applicability, the reason that Ken suggested we do it, industrial facilities, commercial facilities, resort facilities, et cetera, is so we could catch non-conforming uses like Tiffany's, where she's in an industrial district, but he was using it as a residential property.
Right.
It's something to be considered.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Those 10302.
Yes.
Question. I think there's questions on whether the property that's emitting the sound is not conforming or conforming as it relates to the zone. But I think there'd be a strong argument made that if you're in an industrial zone, there's going to be expectations that there might be loud sounds, because that's where construction happens. I'm sorry, but that's.
I
mean,
hold on, let me see. I'm a homeowner, my neighbor's a homeowner. When I moved there 12 years ago, the property was owned by a homeowner. I had no idea that there was going to be an industrial park there 12 years later, 13 years later. But it's not just an industrial park, they want entertainment, they want office space, like industrial. I've lived next to a warehouse, I can tolerate light industrial. My question is should my life be greatly impacted over this? What are their hours of operation? What should they be? Do I have to move to accommodate this industrial park when really, I mean, in all intents and purposes, I was there first. Just because I choose to not have business in my house doesn't mean that I should be affected by that. I mean, the house was there before the business, and that should be taken into account.
Well, the issue is that's not how zoning ordinances work. I mean, it was the airport and that whole area was zoned industrial like 40 years ago.
But
And
my
that's-
house wasn't.
Correct, there was no zoning until 1968 and
Before the zoning, they can do whatever they want next year.
Right,
Okay, but that's still, you still have to address the noise ordinance.
Yeah, no, I-
What am I looking at expecting?
right. Yeah, I want to address that issue and I think we partially already had that taken into account, but there might be different scenarios like yours that we need to account for more. Maybe some specific types of things like Michael was talking about, you know, the property that's emitting it versus receiving it.
Mhm.
But I don't have a
I'm
solution.
not sure how clear it is. I'm also just saying this just for clarity in there, so
Yeah.
we all know what we're talking about.
Right,
So it needs to be clear whether it's when we're talking about a noise ordinance, I'm pretty sure we're talking about the property line of the property that is emitting the sound. So we've got to be consistent with that when
Right.
we're talking about this. Then the other thing is in that section where they talk about the types of uses. If we're gonna list all those things, I'm not even sure all those are defined in our current ordinances. I know you said that in the notes, Julia, that it needs to be, we need to look at that, whether we're gonna use zones or whether we're gonna use the type of use.
right.
If it's going to be the type of use, we just have to add some more definitions to the ordinance, that's all I'm saying.
I think it's fair, and I don't want to muddy the waters, but I think it is fair to look at certain things like, you know, the non-conforming uses specifically. I mean, I think it's really more of an issue where there's non-conforming residential rather than non-conforming commercial. There's not a ton of that, because most of that was like older resort, type properties, and now we have, some homes that are next to historically commercial properties, and they're the ones that are going to need more rather than the other way around.
What do you mean by that?
I guess what I'm saying is like that you're far more likely to have a home in a industrial district than you're going to have some sort of industrial use in a residential district.
I think where you're seeing the issues often are when there is a commercial property that is not conforming in an R1 that is emitting sound. And that will be what.
Certainly, that's
We
more-
gotta make sure we address them both in
Right.
in the ordinance.
Yeah, because I might be zoned in light industrial, but the people across the park are not. The people in the Valhalla community on the other side of it are not, so, but we're all right there. So whatever that industrial park does, we are all affected by it.
Sure. No, you're 100% right.
Anybody else?
If I may, I know we all have different lenses on different issues, but they're all related to our inconveniences and our quality of life, living in the mountains and the beauty of the woods. I just want to point out that in our situation where we have an abuse of R1 going on 100 feet from our homes, it's been going on for 6 years. So while we're quantifying hours of operation and no Sundays, thank you, how about terms for how long something can go on? So we're not tortured for 6 years.
Well, that's interesting because we could say if it's not an industrial zone and it's a project, okay?
Oh, is it a project?
How long can a project go on, or do you need permission to have a project that's
Or
longer
is
than?
there better supervision of what is this project really going, 'cause we watch it all the time. We're convinced it's an industrial operation under the guise of residential, it's just us. We're convinced of that and there's photographic evidence of that, but yet it continues and it's been 6 years. So maybe a term of, if you're done to do a project, somebody might not want to hear my hammer slamming if I'm putting a new deck on a Saturday morning, and I would wait till 10 o'clock on a Saturday before I started swinging a hammer.
I would say that most projects in a residential zone are home improvement projects. And you pretty much know how long it's gonna take. Or if you don't, you can always come in for an extension. But saying that, there's a finite limit to what we'll say is a home improvement project. I think it's a good point.
Well, why hasn't the zoning officer been out? This has been going on for 6 years.
This is, the folks on that dais are rather familiar with our issues. It's been a bit of subterfuge on the part of the property owner.
You can't stop them?
I'm talking to attorneys right now.
Yeah.
I think our hope is to get this rolling to a point where we can have a public hearing and vote on it. And it seems like there's a lot of conversations here and ideas that we should put in. I guess my recommendation is if everybody here could just give your email to Julia, at least we could have a list of who should see the next draft of this, and then be able to make any comments so we can try to get through this as quickly as possible and get it passed. I mean, I know two people here who have big problems. One is Rob, and also the people who live near Mountain Manor who are exposed to a BMX motorcycle track every weekend or every day, I guess. I don't know. This has been going on since the beginning of October. And we're trying to desperately find a way to stop that. Because under the zoning rules, it's an illegal use anyway. It's a business in an R1 zone. But unfortunately, our zoning rules are such that it takes a long time to deal with this. And the zoning officer cited these people at the beginning of October. They managed to maneuver around so that the 30 days they had to appeal to the zoning hearing board expired just the day after they appealed. And then the zoning hearing board didn't meet, I think, in December because their lawyer said that he had another case, so they postponed. Well, hopefully it'll meet in what, the first or second week in January, I mean,
It's the fourth.
Yeah.
That zoning hearing board meeting is scheduled for January 29th at 7 PM.
29.
29th.
So that means from October, let's say, first week in October till the end of January, just to get before the zoning hearing board and get a ruling that what they're doing is, not allowed in an R1 zone. This is ridiculous. That's why we're trying to pass this noise ordinance, which would not be in the zoning part of our code. It would be standalone. And if we go out there and the zoning officer or enforcement officer takes a reading, this man could, whoever it is, could be cited immediately. And if he doesn't stop, we could fine him every time he does it.
Right.
Right?
But you've written this after the fact, so that hold up. I mean, they've already been cited, now you're writing it.
Well, there's a difference that the current offense is a zoning offense. This is different than that. This would apply generally, regardless of the legality of the underlying conduct.
Yeah, me too. So, listening to everybody, I think it's something that we really have to go forward with because so many people in the township has problems. And that, but we really have to start somewhere. We have to.
Yeah.
If it's not just for this racetrack, it's for the woman who lives over on Airport Road, it's for the gentleman that had to put up with it for 6 years. It's just too much and too many people are very inconsiderate,
I agree.
you know, so I think this is good that we're starting this and we need to go forward with it and work through these things because it's very valuable to all of us.
I have one more thing to add. The drag races that happens at the airport in the middle of the night, how are you gonna find these people?
That's gonna require more investigating than anything, but I don't know. This is honestly the first I've heard of.
No, Ken knows about this situation for so many years. About how
I'm just saying it's the
complaining
first I've
about
heard.
it.
Okay. All right, we'll have to look more into it.
Mike had a question.
I'm just gonna ask, because I don't know how this works. If an ordinance is written and then you realize there are mistakes, how many times can you make, are you limited by the number of times you can make amendments to it in a certain year? Is there a time frame on that?
No,
No?
especially when it's in the general code. The rest, like when it deals with zoning or salvo specifically, you know, if you've already advertised it and you make changes, then it needs to be re-advertised and
Okay.
be re-reviewed by planning commission. But when it's outside of zoning or planning related, then
So it's not a curative amendment then? Curative is
No,
defined
we
as
have not
how?
activated section 3022 to fix this. That is the one that has the limit on it. Once you activate something like the board did for solar and warehouses. Ron, I believe it's 36 months that we can't make any changes on that then?
Yes, Julie, I would have to double check, but the 3-year window seems to stick in my head.
So that means if the board says we want to do a curative amendment on this because you want to stop somebody from doing something right away, is that why would you do a curative amendment?
So the point of a curative amendment, like with the solar and the warehouses, is actually to prevent people from giving anything to the township. So like, let's say we had another BMX application come in and it got submitted to the township. Then we could not turn around and go, oh no, our zoning ordinance does not address BMX. We need to do a curative amendment. Because that application is already in the process,
Right.
we wouldn't be able to stop that one. What the curative amendment does is it permits the township to forbid any applications regarding that thing. So when we acted.
Use versus.
Right, so
Okay.
when we activated and passed that resolution related to solar ordinances and warehouse development,
Mhm.
from the time that resolution was enacted, if somebody came to the township tomorrow with a solar plan, we could by law say, we're sorry, we've activated this, we cannot accept this at this time.
But then that 36 months is, you can't do another curative, but you can still change that
you
ordinance
can
again.
change other ordinances, just that's the most extreme tool that you would have when it's something, you know, like that dire.
Okay,
Like cause.
I just wanted to know because obviously, you know, you wanna get it perfect, but,
Right,
or you wanna get it good. But if there isn't a concern around having to have the ordinance in place for 36 months, then yeah, you can put something forward that's pretty good, and if there's a mistake, we can fix it later.
I think there's a couple of, you know, key things that we'll take away from tonight, and then, you know, be on target to adopt it in a couple of weeks.
Mr. Chair, this is Ron speaking. I'm gonna need to jump off because I have Upper Mount Bethel at 7 on the third Wednesday of the month. So is there anything that the board needs me to cover before I go?
No, I think we're all set, Ron.
I actually have the treatment center, you should probably say that it was advertised. I don't know if that matters.
Yes, well, it was advertised.
Yes,
The ordinance for later, you gave us a copy of the advertisement notice for that, the 247.
Let me check.
So I saw it when I looked in the legals, but I'm pretty sure just wanna make sure that you had that for the record for later.
Give me a second here. I don't see where it was advertised. You have something from me in the legal showing it was advertised? Because I just got back the commitment or the review by by the Monroe County Planning Commission on like December 13. I doubt it would have been advertised within the last week, because I remember not doing that, if you know what I mean.
Right. No, I
So
don't
if
think.
you want to advertise for a certain meeting date, then just tell me what meeting date you want so that I have enough time to advertise, and I'll advertise it for that date, since the ordinance has been reviewed by now both the Township Planning Commission and the Monroe County Planning Commission.
It would have been under the township name, not Ron's.
I don't believe, hold on, let me.
Pretty certain we did this.
We had, the last time we had discussed this, we had discussed passing it today, the 20th.
Yes. Please, sir.
Again, Julia, I don't see the ad. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm looking at my file, but I don't see where it was advertised. I mean, if it's advertised for today and you have that information, you can certainly pass it today, but I don't see it. And normally I would have the advertised, especially it's once a week for 2 successive weeks. Plus there would have to be a special notice by the solicitor. And again, I don't think I've done any of that. I generally never do until I get the Monroe County Planning Commission review, which again, I got less than a week ago.
Checking my own file, I don't see any advertisement for it, so we better table this to be on the safe side. And,
Oh, you could,
do it 2 successive. Ron, we could get it in the paper then to be prepared for the January 10th meeting, correct?
2 successive, once a week for 2 successive weeks. Let me just pull up my calendar for a second. Give me a moment. So if I could get it to the paper and they can get it in for the 27th of December, then we're good. We can do December 27, January 3rd, and that gets us to January 10. So that's not a problem. And when you say adopt the ordinance, you just table that until January 10, and we'll go from there unless you guys want to pick a different date. But that's the one I'll advertise for tomorrow unless I hear something different before I get in by way of an email or something like that.
Or without being able to find the advertisement, when we get there, we should table that.
No,
Thank you, Ron, for the clarification.
no, you, Monday, November 27th. It's on the legal ads. Hold on, I have to bypass the question here. Yeah, no, this was, no, never mind. That was a That was for the rehab for December 13th.
Okay.
That was a different one. Maybe that's what I thought I saw, but guess not. All right.
Okay,
Well, we
so
better-
I'm gonna go with January 10, 2024, unless I get an email or something in the morning after you guys further discussed it this evening for a different date. But that's what, what I will use for that, and that would take care of F and G on the, at least on my agenda. F and G is public hearing and the ordinance 247.
Sounds good.
Incidentally, I also had on my agenda the Verizon Magic Cauldron Land Development Plan.
Right.
That was for last week. They asked that it be tabled because they were still doing various stormwater and other things. And they've extended that through February 24, I believe. So
Yes,
if that,
I spoke with Attorney Williams yesterday and he confirmed that they had nothing they wanted to talk about and they asked us to table that.
okay, in fact, February 11 is the date. So, okay. Well, then I'm going to step off. Everyone, if I do not talk to you again, please have a good holiday. Be safe. Enjoy the holidays a bit with you and yours. And we'll talk again in a couple or so days.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ron. The same to you.
All right. Take care now.
Okay, well, that takes care of that. Is there anything else on noise before we proceed to table that land development plan?
Jacob,
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
The real world scenario, as opposed to how we annoy our neighbors unintentionally. Kermit lives up the hill from me. I have a lot of grass. I have a big lawn. I use a leaf blower. Are we suggesting that if there is no noise over 65 decibels, and if Sunday is not allowed, are people allowed to do yard maintenance on routine things? Or is that, a backpack leaf blower is pretty noisy, but it doesn't go for 10 hours a day?
Correct. Right. I knew that's a specific.
Yeah, we do have references to it, in section 10307. I will, pull that up to you, but it does say that, power tools, home maintenance tools, landscaping, yard equipment.
Right.
There are hours that it shall not be operated between 8 PM and 8 AM unless you can be as quiet as the tables. And so there was discussion, actually kind of lengthy discussion. Do you exempt lawn tractors and other leaf blowers and things like that entirely? Do you keep it restricted so people are trying to conform with that 8 AM to 8 PM usage? But if you have like an electric mower, for example, that's much quieter than the 2-cycle gas. So you could use something like that after hours as a way to help preserve the peace.
May I ask you a question? Secondarily, if someone has a personal use John Deere that's, 25,000 pounds, an 80 horsepower diesel running, but it's their personal property, is that animal fit to be on a residential property?
Only if it can cut the lawn in an hour.
Right, well, clearly, I appreciate your humor, but you know what I'm saying, because the amount of industrial equipment that sits there.
Right.
Is there, I want a little Kubota to be moving my gravel and my sand around. But that would be less, that would be a 25 horsepower thing as opposed to 80 horsepower diesel. That sounds like it should be on a construction site in town.
Well, and they would be using that for something, and that something is a project that you're saying shouldn't be allowed, except, during certain hours, and also should have a finite limit to what the project is.
Thank you. Just how many calendar months have to flip by before somebody says I'm done?
There might be a difference there, again, between existing non-conformities versus, it's supposed to be a house, So, okay. All right. Next is,
Jacob, I have one question.
okay.
What happened on people that who make snow, like, and that's seasonal and it's only nighttime?
Snowmaking,
Stony Mountain or a person that who makes snow guns
nope,
and need to test it out.
section 10308, number F, exempts noise from snowmaking operations at any regular authorized approved and operated ski area. So we did discuss that.
Okay, but what if it's in a R1 and it's a home business? And they make snow, or someone owns a snowmaker and make snow for their kids to enjoy, and it's not snow at cold temperatures.
Did somebody do that? Does somebody do that?
That very specific scenario to you, we'd have to look at that. Cause I get, no one wants to deprive everyone the ability to make a profit their own business, but yeah. Mr. Martin.
Just trying to get caught up, what are your hours now you're setting for construction as far as construction use? You're actually doing the project.
Back to the table. Because that was.
$307C.
See. That's on page 8.
It's 10 for me, but I'm using the red line version, so it's probably.
Are you talking about that table 3?
Section 10-307,
Right.
restriction uses and activities, item C.
Oh. Okay. Sorry, I thought it was on the other table. Yeah, no, that all construction and demolition activities shall not be performed between the hours of 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. on weekdays, or between the hours of 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. on weekends and federal holidays, unless the activities would meet the limits normally set in the table.
Or emergencies, I'm assuming.
Right. Any exception that is in 10 subsection 308 applies to any scenario, so.
Jacob, if I may, clarification,
Go ahead.
sorry.
There you go, it's all right.
Since this is a DIY project next to us, it's always on Memorial Day, Labor Day. I'm sure the week between Christmas and New Year's is gonna go like the hammers of hell. Is there any stipulation for, you mentioned holidays, is that for professional contractors, that is a contract with a GC, or is that somebody DIY?
This is gonna apply in all scenarios outside of those exceptions.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
It's going to apply in all scenarios aside from the exceptions, like, the emergencies, things like that.
Thank you.
So then at that point, trying to be anticipatory of what your friends may do. We'll have to be able to cite abuses of, we're going to be reasonable and sufficiently thorough in examining like those exceptions, but. The same routine work that's captured on, your regular Monday versus Memorial Day, if it's gonna be the same thing, it's not going to be one of those exceptions, so. That might be some language that we can add to clarify that too. Because there will be people that, everything's gonna be an emergency, right, so. We'll have to make sure we'll be able to take care of that too.
Appreciate all the efforts.
All right. So, next is
So we're just tabling this.
well, we don't have to table it.
No, okay,
The next item we can,
let
Can I
it
say
float.
one more thing?
It's floating.
go ahead, Tim.
Not that I want to give Julia more work, but I think that what Robert said is good. There should be an email list because it was like a 15-page thing. And you could read it before you go to the meeting or whatever and see exactly what's in it. So I think we should put like an email thing that shall show up to date as to how far we are on it. Cause you do have it on the site, but it's not updated. It's since November 1st, but it didn't get updated.
That's the
So-
most recent version.
Yeah, the November 1st version is the most recent. I do have an active email list. I've got about 14 people on it right now. If anybody else is interested in receiving the updates, if you know my email, just shoot me an email, say you'd like to be included, or we can put you on this lovely yellow paper right here. But excuse me, the website portion of it where you can go, if you're on our website, right underneath resources, there's open township projects, and then you can click on the noise and nuisance ordinance. There's also a banner on the township website that you can go to, and there is a whole page dedicated to this. There's 4 different boxes. The first one in the top left will only and always contain the most current draft that we're reading. After that is resource documents, other things that we've looked at concerning noise ordinances. There's stuff in there from Attorney Kidwell, and stuff on fireworks and whatnot. After that are all of the ordinances from other townships that we referenced. And lastly is all of the outdated drafts. So if you wanted to go back and read where we started and whatnot, you could see those things. But as a whole, the ordinance as it stands in the 11/01/2023 version is the most up to date right now. I will be making changes based on the planning commission's meeting of last month and these discussions that we're having now to create the new draft. My goal for all of this, the board reorganizes at the beginning of January, and then the plan, I believe, is to have a meeting on January 10th. And my goal is to have that update out and disseminated to everyone no later than January 5th. So we all have time over the weekend to take a look at it, review it, bring our comments, and then if we're good, we'll move forward with getting it advertised and adopted from there. If we're not, we'll do another round of remediations as we need to, and then move forward as quickly as we can from there.
So as Solicitor Karasak mentioned, the Verizon Magic Cauldron plan, we're awaiting an updated submission on that. So we have a current extension through February 11th. So we're going to entertain a motion to table that until we get the new submission.
Make motion to a table Magic Cauldron.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. Do I hear a second? I'll second. Okay, any questions?
Is this the Verizon tower that was gonna be at the airport?
Yes.
I thought that was the dead deal. What happened with
No, there was,
it again?
no, there were remediations to the plan, based on the impervious surface. Correct, John?
They had not, addressed the comments. They got a conditional approval subject to addressing the comments in the engineer's review letter, and they've been taking the time to address those comments. They did make a revised plan submission to address those comments. We responded. We still think there are a few items that need to be addressed. We responded with a November letter, and we're still waiting to hear how they're going to address those comments.
And they're not with Ritu. Yeah, so
No,
that's it.
that, I think part of the delay was they've changed engineers in the process.
Robert, wasn't this the one that we had a few years ago back? And then, Robert, I'm talking to you.
Vicky's wondering if this is the one that occurred a couple of years back. If I remember correctly, the board said, no, we won't do it. They brought us to court, township lost. And so they had to allow it there as a conditional. And so it went through all of that approval and whatnot.
Okay, so with that tower, what's the noise, the decibel for that, the minutes of the noise?
I don't think there's,
Well, I don't
any-
think
there's not
there's
gonna be
any
any noise from the tower itself, yes, the construction. You know, of course, there's gonna be noise, and they're gonna have to follow this too, but there's not gonna be any noise being emitted from the tower itself.
So if there's any faulty stuff going on in that ping, that frequency thing, and they do emit frequency, the cell tower.
It's not going to be, it's not like it's going to have like a speaker attached to it that everyone's just going to be able to hear, like
I don't
there's.
know, cause if it's that area, then I know she's gonna be affected.
Well, there's, I don't know what the decibel level of that ping would be, but our understanding is that these types of things are maintained and that they're remotely accessed and there's remote notification, and then if someone has to go on site, then they'll go on site, and that's why they're gonna have those 2 parking spaces, but that's not supposed to make any noise either.
There was testimony offered that there would be no sound.
What about health conditions?
We went all through that at the public hearing, and it was vetted at that time, and there were several experts here who offered their opinion that there would be no health consequences as a result of construction of the tower.
I mean, the tower itself,
I'm sorry?
well, the tower itself cause any issues.
No.
Yeah, the monopole, no. There's not going to be any health impact, that predates me, that was, I think 2019 was that decision by the court, but there was nothing in that says that there was going to be a
This is
negative.
also not near any residential area. It's really off of Airport Road. It's on the beginning of the Vigon property. In other words, where you turn to Vigon off of Airport Road, that's where it is.
My property abuts Saigon.
You're on the other side, of the airport though, right?
If you turn on Airport Road, there's the first Saigon, a row of warehouses. I share that driveway.
Robert, I had a conversation with Tiffany and I still have the GIS up from that conversation. So this is 209 right here.
Yeah.
And this is where they're being built.
Right.
This is the property right there.
Right.
So she's right in amongst,
He's over here. I didn't know there was anything there.
yeah, behind the dam or,
Right here,
yes,
in the middle of Vigon?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good question. I don't know. John, you're saying that, there was testimony that there's no health hazards from this?
Yes.
We'll have to dig that up to get the record. We could, send you that type of thing. But I'd have to look at that directly, but that predated me, so I'll have to look.
Okay.
But you gave Julia your email?
There's, it required a conditional use.
Right.
And when there is a conditional use, there's 6 criteria that have to be addressed for the board to grant the conditional use. And those, broadly speaking, those conditions are about the health, safety, and welfare of the residents, surrounding residents.
Right.
And there was testimony offered to suggest that there was no ill effects as a result of the construction or operation of the tower.
Well, we'll make sure we get the record then.
Yeah, if you could tell me what criteria they use to come up with that, I would appreciate it.
Sure. Not a problem. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Brian?
I don't think he's there.
All right. Next is the consideration of resolution number 536, which is the 2024 budget. It makes a lot of investments, especially in the capital improvements front, to make it more sustainable, which is going to prevent the long-term issue, which would have been basically the implosion of public works, because most of those trucks are fairly old. So we're making more investments to make sure that we're accounting for the depreciation of them in the eventual purchase of new equipment. Hold on. And it also includes the fire and EMS fund, which is in the millage rates as described in the next resolution. So
May I make this statement now?
once there's a motion and a second, then we'll have
I'll
discussion.
make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, second by myself. Now discussion.
Since you guys have been in office, my taxes have gone from $137.72 to $576.34. I don't know what you're doing. You didn't pay the solicitor last week, I heard that. I understand there's a telephone bill. There's a bill for the retirement that was late. You hired somebody else, you hired a guy under conservation and recreation. Can you explain what he's gonna do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the job of the Conservation and Recreation Director is to be able to manage the day-to-day of parks and also work with the Open Space Advisory Committee to fulfill the obligations that the voters approved in the bond for clean
You
water.
don't have an open space.
There's an Open Space Committee.
No.
Dormant.
And
We
you
wanna
don't have
get
a
that going.
nickel in there for the parks. I noticed you even removed the money for you need a new roof on the.
That's not true. There's plenty of funds in there for the parks. Yes, there's parks maintenance, which is contracted out.
For mowing the grass, but there's a lot more.
Right, well, there's plenty.
Our parks are a mess. Since you've been in office, you have not put a penny in any of our parks.
That is false.
I don't want to walk with
We
it.
bought-
I got
Of course,
pictures.
we got a new playground here at Waterfront. We've been making continual upgrades there.
Now, look at, something's wrong. Something's very wrong. Your spending is out of control. I look at the timesheets. she's got a hell of amount of overtime, which we've never had in 16 years Brian was here. Nobody had any overtime. You're charging for parks every day, while you're on another job. And Robert, are we
Those
paying
don't
for
mix.
you to fight for your speed bumps up in Shawnee Valley?
No,
Well,
I don't
you-
believe so.
It's on all
Unless
your, it's on all your minutes of what you know.
You paid for whatever was, I would say, involved with the township and our suit against these people.
The suit against the people and the PRD?
Suit against the Shawnee Valley Owners Association.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Well, you know something? There's nothing that I do that you don't think is ridiculous.
Robert, what
And I'll
you're
say
doing is
this, I think you're ridiculous
No,
in
I
all
want people
sorts
to
of
save
ways.
money, I'm
And when you
sorry.
say your husband was a supervisor here for what, 18 years and everything was fine? No, the reason we're cleaning this place up now and why it's costing money is what wasn't done for all those
Bullshit.
18 years.
All right,
Bullshit.
We don't
What
want to
you're,
hear
you're
that.
stealing money is what you're doing.
all right, that is
See,
false.
Patty.
Go to the district attorney and tell him I'm stealing money, okay?
No, I'm gonna call the attorney general to come in and.
Do whatever you want.
All right, come on.
You could
we
shut
need
up,
to-
Robert.
We need decorum. I don't know who that was. We just need decorum,
Now,
okay?
look, I'm trying to be nice about this.
All right.
You're writing hours that you're not putting in. You're having lunch with Barth Rubin and charging us too, I see. I mean.
You know, he's doing the development in the township. That's why I want you, I'm head of economic
I
development.
see you at lunch with.
I was supposed to come to the township meeting to do that.
Oh, come on, no, there's plenty of reasons to have different meetings and
No.
whatnot. No, everything that you.
I think we need a forensic audit of the accounts. There's something wrong.
All right, I'm glad you think so.
Now, look what you've done to our taxes. How do you think people are gonna pay these?
People are going to pay things as they always have. Look, it's unfortunate, but that
You
situation,
don't pay taxes. You don't know.
I
what's
pay
what.
taxes.
I pay taxes too.
You don't own a house.
Correct, I
I
don't
do,
own a
and I
house.
pay
A lot
taxes.
of people in our area
You
either
give
rent,
yourself a nice raise to pay your taxes.
no,
I don't think you should take any money in supervisors. Get rid of that. Take the $200.
well,
Fixed
You've
income.
got to cut stuff.
all right.
Is there a way we could save money instead of increasing the expenses? It went from millions of dollars to more millions of dollars, and I printed it all out and I left it. But didn't it go from like 3 million to 5 or 6?
I'll tell you a way to save money. You know what? When you need an ambulance, put your husband in a car and take him to the hospital. Then you can save money. Because one of the reasons our taxes are going up is that our EMS and fire tax that we had to put in because we don't have any money to pay that anymore. And for the last 6 months, since June, I believe, the Bushkill ambulance service has been in here every month begging for about $11,000 just so they can get through the month and do their payroll.
And the
They
same,
don't have any money.
the same is being done, well, the same is being done in our neighboring municipalities in Middle Smithfield and
We're the
Price
fifth
Town.
highest tax. No,
That's also not true. You're 14th, it's now gonna be about 10th.
No,
Yes.
no, I've got it
Yes.
written down right here.
Yes, no, there's a difference between the
But
municipal
we should not
millage.
be paying for his work at Shawnee Valley. I'm sorry.
You're not paying for my work there, you're paying for my work here, and you don't pay very much, okay?
All right.
And let me ask you this, what has your husband done as secretary for the last year or two that we've been paying him? Did you look at those?
Yes, I did look at
He hasn't opened an email in like 2 years.
Be the rent
All right.
master and
Come
the
on.
supervisor and didn't make half as much as.
Right.
That's false. Okay, all right, come on.
So let's get the attorney general involved.
Yes, do it.
Okay.
Last week's
We
meeting.
invite him to lunch.
After you had the
Robert.
break, we couldn't stay and we had to leave. And I came in on Zoom, and when I came in on Zoom, it said, okay, we have this new stuff. There was 10 items, and you read them all off.
Yeah.
And you said, all approved, yep, we all agree, yes. There was no like input on any of this, and then there's your employment package for this person and employment package for, so that's like, how much money, more money that.
There was discussion, and those are both in
You
the
didn't
budget.
discuss any of these, you just approved.
We did
all
discuss
10
them.
in one vote.
We did discuss, yeah, that most of those were the traditional items that would be in the consent
We already
agenda.
voted on it. We need to be
Traditional.
higher.
Traditional.
Okay, well, we
Robert,
have,
can I just stand up and tell my husband how he didn't do anything right for 16 years?
come on,
The public would like to hear
we're not going to
But
get into
millions
that.
of dollars were not increased over those years. They kept the budget the same, somehow they.
And now we
kept
have
it
to
the
pay
same.
for the upgrades on the road system.
The
and-
roads, oh, that was my other comment.
Yes,
Mosher's Knob Road,
yes,
they paved it this year.
yes.
Well, right now, there's water going across the road because they tried to clean the drains out the other day, last week.
Mhm.
I don't know what they did, they sucked the leaves out, but right at the other end of the drain, the water is coming out on the road. They have to clean, I had to do it on my own driveway, half mile long. I went out in the ditch and I cleaned all the leaves out of the ditch so the water could go down the left-hand side. It's coming out on the road, and in front of the first house there, it used to be John Haney's, I don't know the girls that live there now, but that first house, my daughter went down this morning and she went sideways, she was scared to death. She called me, she said, Mom, be careful on the knob, it's a sheet of glass of ice.
Well, we'll
And
make-
right there, if you go above where it's coming out, right there, it's all clogged in the drains right there. They've gotta get in with like an iron rate. They have to do some manual labor. That's what I did for this weekend, last weekend, every time it rains.
Yeah.
It's only gonna get worse. It's a
Well,
big,
we'll double check on that.
Yes,
I'll
So
speak
all
with
you've done
Chris.
in the park for
Every
the
time
last
you turn
year,
up Church
What's that?
Hill, there's a
would you
big
tell me
fault.
what all
Where you
you've done in
pay
the park for the
part
last
of
few
the
years?
Honey,
What?
I'm not gonna relitigate all that right now.
Well, what?
We're trying to
Well,
pass
you're
the
not
budget.
charging hours.
We're going to pass the budget. Yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
motion on the floor.
Yeah. Is there any other comment? All right, all in favor?
It has to
Aye.
stop.
Aye.
Motion is passed.
Brian, are you there or no?
Oh, I just, a man with a stroke, and this one's saying for 16 years he didn't do a
Oh,
damn
come
thing.
on. We're,
That's nice for the last meeting, Robert.
all right.
Next agenda item,
You
taxes.
pay these
Okay.
taxes, I know
The
that.
next,
it's not just your decision. This is everybody here. We
I-
all pay
we
taxes.
certainly understand that.
I just don't understand how
We
you.
have a
it fits
disagreement on
people's
it, but
taxes like this.
we have a disagreement on it, but this is unfortunate. We cannot make up for the last, years of expenses all at once, but we've had these gradual increases to make sure that we can make equitable investments in these things.
And these
There's
parks,
any wages.
you
But
need somebody, now you've got all the expense of the parks, and now you're hiring somebody to do that. Why?
they're
Why
managing the
not just
parks
leave
and the
them where
grants.
they were?
And why is Robert running around Tracy's property? You say you talk to everybody at Lake Valhalla, you haven't made one damn phone call. What's the kiosk in the bathrooms down in the Minnesota Park? Do you have permission for that?
Yeah,
What?
all of these things were
It's
done
all-
with a grant with the Broadhead Watershed Association.
Pardon?
Those kiosks were done with a grant with the Broadhead
No,
Watershed
he's
Association.
putting up a sports kiosk.
You get a grant, doesn't
And he's
mean you
got-
have to spend.
You know,
Do you want
not
to-
only do you not know what you're talking about, but I don't know what you're talking
Well,
about.
here, I got it right here.
You know
Come on,
that.
all right, come on.
I got it
Next
right
item up
here.
is item 537, the millage rate. I
Okay.
move that we adopt resolution 537. Do I hear a second?
Motion to approve.
Will you second the motion?
Yeah, second.
I'll read
Motion
it
by
to you.
myself, second by Ms. Levenheim. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I've got it all right here, if you wanna read it, all park projects, future studies, Boy
Next.
Scouts, flagpoles, pumps, Wyndham's pumps, we've got nothing to do, that's a PRD.
I don't know what you're talking
We're
about.
not supposed to be,
Hold on, we're conducting a meeting here.
you wanna read
Next
it?
item up is resolution number 537, the 2023 budget adjustments. These are made
Still wet
with the
line
budget
here.
finance manager and our town consultant. Do I hear a motion on resolution 530?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, second by myself. Questions?
Right here, sports kiosks, layout restroom.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, items G and H, according to the solicitor, are going to be tabled, which dealt with the removal of the treatment centers from the R1 zone. So we plan on adopting that, I guess, January 10th. We said we would do
You're
that.
driving to town, just now you own
Okay. Do I hear a motion to table items G and H?
Motion to table items
it.
G
Hear
and
a
H.
motion of these?
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, second by myself. Any questions? All in favor?
Lake
Aye.
Valhalla
Aye.
Echo Park, does that ring a bell?
We're conducting the meeting. Item I is the consideration to authorize the purchase of the skid steer, which is $73,322, and it is in budget. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Lovin. I'll second.
Okay.
Any questions?
What is the core?
The skid steer?
Yeah.
All right, well, Julia, do you want to talk about the difference where we started and what we're trading in order to?
Yes, so one of the reasons, that we are pursuing the skid steer is because we would like to bring our paving in-house this year. In general, with the way that prices have increased because of COVID, it costs us about $190,000 per mile to have paving outsourced. After speaking at length with Middle Smithfield Township, the goal for 2024 is to have both of our townships work in tandem together to reduce our expenses. Roughly speaking, when you pave in-house, it costs about $100,000 per mile. So it's a savings of almost 50% if we can pull the thing in-house. After speaking with our new Department of Public Works Director, his thought was that he wanted to get and upgrade this equipment so we had it, so we could pull these projects in and save more money so we could pave more roads. The skid steer is, I believe, it's less than $75,000.
$73,322.
But by doing that, if we buy the skid steer and then remove 1 mile of road paving from our outsourced budgeting, we've already saved ourselves $20,000, and that skid steer will allow us to do a lot of other things. Not only will we be able to mill and fill, we'll be able to clean out ditches better, and we'll be able to make more improvements to the township because we'll have the equipment we need to do so.
But we have to pay people to do that though.
That's correct, but it's still, if you wanna send it to a company to have it done, it's $190,000. If we can do it in-house, it's $100.
Right.
And so that's a savings of $90,000 roughly per mile.
And we can do more miles.
Cooperate with Middle Smithfield already, but this expansion of that cooperation is gonna save us both money. All right, do I hear a motion?
Realize it's fraud what the three of you have done on your.
Okay. Do I hear a motion on item I?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, second by myself.
I do.
How is a skid steer going to do the paving?
It's part of the process, it's not,
You don't know how to pay.
it's not the single,
Look at what
Who's
is
gonna
involved.
pay? Who's gonna use it?
our road crew and anyone that would be working with our road crew. It's not gonna be the three of us that are getting up there in the skid steer. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, I don't have anything to note for the Board of Supervisors report, so we'll proceed to the payment of the bills,
Okay.
which include general fund and escrow fund payments. General fund is the typical expenses, utilities and the like. The escrow fund is the release of escrow funds per the affidavit approved at the last meeting. Total is $110,197.25. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the bills at $110,197.25.
Okay, motion by Mr.
Like to
Levenheim,
spend money.
second
It's not good.
question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 You realize it's not your money, it's our money?
Any other public comment?
Yeah, I think you need to get intercom or microphones. I really had a hard time hearing.
We're working on that.
I'm
for
like,
sure.
I have no idea what
I promise
Julia
you.
said.
I promise you, that's why we even got one in the front office, because that makes it easier when dealing with folks through glass. So we're working on that too, not lavaliers, but some sort of other built-in system.
Makes me feel old, like I'm losing my hearing. I can't hear you.
Well, we know it won't violate the noise ordinance. All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, second by myself, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:23 PM. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.